Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Old Women Who Write. I'm really pleased to have you back here again, and I'm doubly pleased because I have Victoria Hitchcock. Did I say that right? Yeah,
No,
Victress.
no.
Oh my gosh, Victress. I knew the
You
name.
know,
Where
it's a strange name, so it's hard to remember.
it's a beautiful name. Victress, Victress, Victress Hitchcock is with me, and I am delighted. Victress, I wanted to tell you before we even get started. When I started Old Women Who Write, I put it out that I was going to start it and what it was going to be called. And you wouldn't believe the furious feedback I got. Old, you cannot say old. You cannot use old. I am not an old woman. You could call me senior. You could call blah, blah, blah. And I decided, well, I was going to swear. I decided the hell with that, minor swearing, the hell with that. We are aging, we are aged or aging, we are old women, and it's time for us to take up that mantle and become who we are and be proud of who we are and where we are in life. Boy, I didn't expect to go off on that tangent.
It's from looking at me, another old woman who writes. It kind of inspired you to go back to the
Well,
origin
well, you
story.
could be
I mean,
right.
it's true, you know.
It is. It is. So, for all of you who are listening and watching, Victress is a writer. Victress, was this your first book? I can't
Yes, it
remember.
was. I
Oh,
was a filmmaker for 45 years.
right,
So
right.
this is my first full, you know, start to finish book.
Yes. And I know that all of you out there would love reading it. It's called A Tree with My Name on it. It has a subtitle, which is what, Finding My Way Home. Is that right? But really, what caught my eye, and when I first looked at it, was the first part of the title, "A Tree with My Name on It." I thought that was a sort of a neat title for a book, so I read it. Um, Backstory, I will. This is all still part of introducing you. Backstory is Victress and her husband at the time were facing empty nest time, and both had or were having or or were winding down on very vibrant careers and facing a stale relationship at the best, stale perhaps relationship. And so they made the incredibly weird decision to buy a ranch in the Colorado mountains together. Is that the good way to tell the backstory?
It absolutely is. I mean, it more and more, if I look back, I mean, what on earth were we thinking? But I'm a big believer in things have a way of telling their own story. And things have a way of unfolding in a way that's absolutely exactly what needed to happen.
Yes,
And if you do something that extreme, you are really putting yourself into a position of make it or break it.
yes,
And I think that's what we needed. It wasn't, not continuing in the same sort of like everything's sort of working and we're here and we're working and we're in our city, Denver home and everything's fine. Just like, let's just throw it to the winds and see if we are able to survive
right. Because it really
as a
was a
couple.
survival situation. I mean, I'm assuming you two urbanites didn't have a lot of experience with isolated ranch of over 100 acres, right? And
Absolutely. No.
and horses, which have their own big part of the story, horses for you as an individual. But you didn't know how to do it. And I have to tell you, even though your first year that you talk about, there was initial excitement, and then old stuff started coming in with your marriage. And that first year, I don't think you gave yourself enough credit for how you did survive and to some degree thrive in that first year, that excitement that took you in there. Do you
Mhm.
agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that the way I look at that first year, at least those initial few months is that when I entered the picture, I mean, I had sort of somewhat, offhandedly said, "Oh yeah, let's just buy the ranch." It was Joe's big, huge fantasy, my husband. I mean, he saw that place and he was just absolutely smitten.
Yeah.
And I said, I was kind of sick of trying to figure things out. So I said, okay, let's just do it, you know? And my initial reaction was one of complete anxiety and panic.
Uh-huh.
Once I kind of got over the fact, that sort of like flamboyant move to do it.
Yeah.
And his, at the beginning, he was so enamored. And I liken it in the book, and then this is the way I kind of realized what was happening is he was like smitten, and he entered this sort of honeymoon period of like making it perfect and so on. Whereas I was kind of like in an arranged marriage with the
Uh, yeah.
so I kind of went into it it's like, ooh, I'm not sure about this. And then I had to just kind of figure out a way. And so my love for the place deepened as I let myself, you know, it sort of settle in. Sink is like,
Yes.
sounds a little, and the honeymoon was over and he was like, I can't do this.
Yes.
It's like so we had these two different
And that
ways.
was and the his I can't do this was after the first year there.
Well, no, it started in the middle of the first year.
Hmm.
He started to realize that he had nothing more to do. He'd done all the wonderful fixes and everything. He'd added a beautiful bathroom with an old coffer tub, and
Hmm.
he'd done he'd set up the garden, and I mean, he'd done so much to make it really, really livable and wonderful. And then he was like, "Well, now what am I supposed to do?" Whereas I sort of started, kind of expanding out into the neighborhood, meeting people and going to, and I was the one with the connection with the horses.
Yes. Yes.
And that, of course, gave me a whole world
Right.
because I had to know other people, with horses.
Now, tell me back on you are, is it fair to say a lifelong Buddhist, or at least from your 20s Buddhist?
Yes,
And Joe
I
was not,
started.
right?
Joe, Joe kind of valiantly tried to join me on the Buddhist path.
Oh,
He tried, and it just was never his thing. It was obvious that his kind of connection to Buddhism was just to sort of try to please me, and he liked people and, parties and whatever. Uh, Whereas for me, it was and is a very deep, and important part of my life.
yes. I'm really nervous here because there's so much I want to fit into this half hour. But there's so much to what happened here. I mean, A Tree with My Name on It is the story of your spiritual growth, but that doesn't quite encompass it for me. I mean, it wasn't just spiritual, or many things fed into the spiritual, maybe I should say, from the horses, to the actual tree with your name on it, your initials on it, to the history of the ranch, to your work. And let me say, Victress teaches meditation, or taught, I don't know if she still does, meditation in prisons, to prisoners. All of that to the community you trying to build was what fed into your spiritual growth. And you struggled. You struggled. I can
Yeah.
feel it.
I love the way you're saying spiritual, because it is a spiritual. And let me say that obviously a big part of what happened as I was there, particularly when I was there alone, but also starting with Joe, is that I started to confront is a little harsh word, but the old kind of wounds, and I have to say traumas, which would have been childhood traumas that I'd never quite realized how incredibly hard my childhood was. And sexual traumas
Right.
started to rise up because, and I think in part because I was there in this incredibly vast space
Yes.
where you couldn't distract yourself with a lot of stuff
Mm,
easily, which is what we normally do in our sort of more urban kind of setting. And now, of course, way more because back then, this was the turn of the 20th century or 21st century, I guess it would be. And so we didn't have cell phones,
right.
we didn't.
Right.
So if you're going to be in a mountain ranch in the middle of nowhere, literally 25 miles to any store, for
Yes.
instance, and as I say in my book, more bears than people in
Right.
living in that area.
Mhm.
If you're going to be there, you're going to be confronting a lot of things, and it's
Right.
not just bears that are going to be scary. So, and as you pointed out, I had this connection with the history of the place through a woman who was born there,
Yes.
also had her own journeys of old traumas. So, and we both started writing our stories to each other. So that was a big thread. And I feel like this, it's a sort of a transformational, or at least the opening the door
Mm.
to a path of or of healing,
Mm-hmm.
healing from the traumas, healing from wounds, healing from, the marriage, healing for all of it. It
Right.
was the beginning. I'm not going to say that we get to the end and it's like, oh, everything's totally fine.
No. Right.
But that is really, and I think that trauma is a spiritual,
Yes.
um, working with it can be for those of us who have a practice like that, a spiritual journey.
Yes. I noticed, and I couldn't decide if you had done this on purpose as a writer
Mhm.
or not. In the very beginning of the book, you talk about your childhood, and but you only talk about the moving all the time, from culture to culture, and experience to experience, because your father was a diplomat. So you talk about that and talk about what a traumatic childhood. When I read the book, now I read it first a couple months ago, and I just reread sort of through it to prepare for this. I was struck by, I thought, well, that doesn't sound so traumatic, just moving a lot. Okay, that was my thought when I first read it. Of course, when you're on your spiritual growth through here and you get back in touch with other things that happened to you as a child, you know, also that reads like your own revelation that you're having almost as you're writing. I know that sounds weird, but do you hear what I'm saying?
Yes, I get it. And that's really an interesting take on this and actually provocative question because yes, I think first of all, the sexual trauma that happened as a child that's in the book was something that was sort of a storyline, as were,
Yeah,
I think the real heart of this book is that it's waking up to how I have been impacted
yeah,
and how the defenses and dissociation and numbing that I've done over the years and disconnection from my body
mhm,
had sort of kept me able to function very well, but coming back into my body through the horses and all, the other ways of there you are kind of like it's a very physical reality being in a ranch like that. Um, kind of opened up the door to these things. So I started to see that not just there was a sexual trauma that happened as a child, but the thing that made it traumatic, I mean, particularly traumatic or increased the trauma, is that there was nobody to turn to. So I started to see, and this was provoked in ways, by the conversation between me and Berna, who
mhm,
was born at the ranch and had to leave it as a child. So I think that what you're getting at, and it was true that it was writing the book had
Yes,
moments of real revelation, and also that the whole idea that trauma is not the events, it's the way in which it's kind of couched. In other words, if you're held with some kind of love and acceptance and healing energy
yes,
at the time,
yes,
you're not going to be,
yes.
40 years, 5 years later, you're not going to be dealing with it.
You know,
So
mhm,
that's it. And I think what I recognize is in a large part, because my parents were in a world that was, they had to really show up in a way that they never had to,
yes,
particularly, as diplomats. And they just sort of like ignore, sort of thought, well, she's okay,
right.
And so I became kind of like excess baggage, the whole deal.
I will tell you, this really hits home because yesterday I gave a speech in front of about 50 women, and it was titled "Don't Keep Your Secrets." And as part of the speech, I'm talking about my book some, but as part of the speech, I was talking about sexual abuse, as a child and what happens and how it was so freeing to me to write about it. It was so healing. And as whenever I give a speech that involves that, but particularly yesterday, at the end, people were coming over and buying books, and then a woman waited till everyone left and came over, and she said, "That happened to me when I was 5 years old, and it went on till I was 6 years old." And she said, "I have never told another living soul that it happened." And it's so common, that it happens. And you're absolutely right. It isn't the act. It isn't the act. It
Mhm.
is the what we make up about it, about the act, what it means about us, about who we are, what it means about those who are supposed to love us, our family. That stays with us for years. This woman was in her 70s who talked to me yesterday.
I mean, that is really heartbreaking because, as you said, it's so common. And I feel like I had I had had sort of an inkling
Hmm.
that this had happened.
Hmm.
So it took a while for me to piece it together, the original one. But even the second, the actual rape that I get kind of have a awakening about. Um, that was, I knew it was true. I just had made it a narrative. And that's another way
Yes,
that we deal
yes, it is.
is we don't allow ourselves to actually just sit with the absolute horror and pain and tragedy and sorrow and all of it. We just go, and then I was 16 and then this happened and then and it was really hard and it was the 60s, so no.
Yeah.
And I think that writing the book, the experiences at the ranch where the sort of the doors were blown open, so to speak, and the experience of writing the book and sort of revisiting and deepening,
Hmm.
it's almost like I can't really unpack the two at
Yeah.
this point,
I, how long did you live there by yourself at the ranch? Was
I
it?
was there a year. Yeah, a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly a year.
Yeah. Um, Talk a little bit, I'm just halfway switching gears. Talk about why you were teaching meditation in prison.
Well, I had spent a lot of time in and out of prisons. That sounds kind of a little
Yes, it
in and
sounds
out
like
of prisons
for a
as
Buddhist. Okay.
yeah, no, as a filmmaker. I had done a lot of work doing. I was a producer and director of guidance films. They used to be called, I guess, maybe they still are, for Discovery Education.
Mm,
And uh, I had covered a wide gamut of topics, gangs, violence. I did a whole series called Violence Inside Out, Alternatives to Violence, and all of them pretty much involved going talking to kids mainly in juvenile detentions, but also to men in prisons.
Mm,
And so I had a certain experience of that. And then I had also taught meditation, in but not in prisons.
mhm,
But somehow or another, when these people, the people who ran this meditation thing out of Boulder, when they got wind that I was near this federal prison down there, and that I was also, certified, so to speak, as a teacher, they kind of put two and two together and asked me. And it just seemed like the perfect fit.
mm.
Because I'd always had very deep experiences being in prisons and talking to incarcerated, particularly, like I said, kids, but also adults.
Yeah.
So that just made total sense. And whoa, it was a real lifeline. I don't know that I would have made it through those 2 years without
Fascinating.
those guys. I mean, and that sort of consistency of every week I'm in there.
Yes.
And we're following a path together. And it was, whew. I do have one funny story if you want to hear it.
Yeah.
Paul,
But wait, hold on
go
one second.
ahead.
I want to hear it, but I just want to say that what struck me when you were saying that was that I would have thought it would be couched in because I wanted to serve these people, these men who were in trouble and were incarcerated. I wanted to help them. And what you just said was that's what saved me during those 2 years, which is just fascinating. So, yes.
Well, I think both are true in the sense that when they called and said, we need somebody to go into this prison, I could have very easily said no.
Yeah.
But I did want to, it was an arena that I felt I could be helpful.
Hmm.
But fundamentally, we helped each other once this thing, once we got going in the minimum security prison. Obviously, as you've read the book, was a little bit of a pretty intense glitch in the medium security prison, but um, yeah, it was so
Okay, tell me the
nourishing.
funny story.
Okay, so the guys in the group. I
Yep.
changed all their names.
Yes.
But maybe 2 years after, and I have absolutely no idea how this happened, I get a postcard and at my new home in Boulder, and it says, "Dear Vicky," I think I called myself Vicky in that group, but anyway, I sold my house in the town that this man was from. I sold my house. I made a shit, in my language, ton of money. And I bought a boat. I'm in the Caribbean. Why don't you come and we'll start a meditation group in Belize? Signed. And I looked at this. I said, "Who is it?" And then I realized, oh my God, it's the guy who I call in the book Matt.
Sure. Oh my God.
How did he get this address? Well, luckily he didn't have I didn't, have a return address to get back to him, but it was
Wow.
so delightful and kind of wonderful,
Well,
that,
we can
and
both
people
just put
want
in that being happy, teaching meditation in the Caribbean, living on a
this
boat,
guy
out of
exactly
prison and into
out
life.
of prison and teaching meditation to
I
whomever.
love that. I love that. It's really
Uh,
wonderful. It's really wonderful. So,
it was
what
great.
oh my gosh, it's already 25 minutes in. What has been your experience post writing the book? No, let me back up. Not your experience going out and talking about it. What has been your experience having written the book? I mean, what did it teach you? What has been your experience of now having put this all into a book?
Wow, I don't think 5 minutes is going to cover this. You know, first, I am very grateful and I feel really good about my book, which was, for a person who has a lot of insecurities, it felt good to actually read the book and look at it and say, okay, I did it. I love it. It's fine.
Yeah.
Um, that said, and I felt, like I said, a lot of the understandings had been sort of expanded by writing, and it took 3 years. I mean, it wasn't, uh, and then a whole new layer of sort of insecurity and hope and fear and, of the marketing.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes. Yes.
Lordy, because I'm hearing, as you did it from the woman, last night, I'm hearing from people I know, I don't know, how valuable it's been to them to read the book
Yes.
in their own path, in their own journey. And so I really want to get it out there. I want people to know about it.
That's right.
And boy, is that it's like all of a sudden you're back in the trenches. You know what I mean? And you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
And so this is why one of the reasons why this is such a wonderful time to talk to you, because I feel like, I just want people to know that it's available.
Right.
And obviously not to for the money, but
Yeah,
for
not
the
for the
actually
money.
no, but actually for the fact that people seem to get something from it that's personal and helpful to them.
Yes. And let me say, we have skipped over the whole um, topic of that this is really about women also.
Mhm.
I mean, it's really a book for women. I don't know how else to say it, but it's because it involves so much of what our enculturation, our responses to our enculturation, our resistance to, our guilts about, or whatever. And you're dealing with that. That's what it's like. You're right there with you. You're making discoveries as you're writing. So, my words to you would be enjoy the fact that you're touching people's lives. Really take that in, that you're giving a gift to other women and take it in and just enjoy that. I mean, I was telling my younger daughter yesterday about the woman's reaction at the speech where we ended up just holding hands, and I'm telling her how sorry I am that that happened to her in her life. And she said, Mom, that's why you wrote the book. That's why you're happy it's out there. That's why you do all this energy. And she's right. She's right about that. So take it in and give it back. I know you will. I'm preaching to the choir here, I think. It's
But
the difference between extroverts and introverts. That's all.
well, the thing is, I'm an introvert,
I know
so
you are. That's what I'm
you know
saying.
what I mean? Exactly. So, I mean, I ride I'm a little bit on the razor's edge with the introvert
Yeah,
extrovert, but my basic
yeah,
being an introvert. And it's so helpful to hear you say that. And I love hearing you say that. And I loved everything about your book and what you're doing with it. And I just feel like having this kind of community is really wonderful.
yes. I
And one teeny little thing I want to say, which surprised me with the response to the book, is how many men have loved it.
Oh, really?
I found that so interesting. And there was even a man who came to a book reading and he launched in to how he realized by some of the exchanges between me and my husband as things started to really deteriorate,
Yes.
he saw himself in the way Joe was being, and he
Oh,
saw how painful it was for his partner
wow.
by looking at how I expressed how that landed on me. And I thought, wow, it never really occurred to me. I thought it was
It's
going to be
really neat.
men and women of a certain age, probably, or, a age range.
Yeah,
It's really, and I've heard that from other men who come,
there you
so you never
go.
know.
So just get out there and enjoy the gift you're giving the world, really.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Jean. It's so fun talking with you. I just
This
feel
is
like
this
do
is
it for another hour or two.
I know, but probably so. But we can't. It's time to
Okay.
quit, unfortunately. So I want to say again, Victress, tell people where they can buy your book, how they can get your book and read your book.
I think the easiest way to figure it all out, because it's available on Amazon, it's available on Barnes& and Noble, it's available on bookshop.org, which is sort of independent bookstores, and in bookstores, some bookstores. Certainly in my hometown of Boulder, it's available here in bookstores. So, but on my website, I have a website where you can read chapters and look at pictures of the ranch, which is kind of always fun for people. Um, and there is a page, the contact page has links, direct links to all of those places where you
Oh,
can.
great, great,
And so that's probably the easiest, most direct route. But if my website is victresshitchcock.com,
great.
right?
And I
So
want to say to the watchers, if you get it by Amazon, and I know we all hate supporting Amazon at the moment,
I
but
know.
if you get it through Amazon, be sure, please be sure to leave a review for Victress. And that can be as simple as just hitting stars or putting one sentence. It doesn't have to be, a 5 paragraph review. Just put something because it does help us unknown authors sell books because we get enough of those reviews and Amazon will push the book a bit. The more you sell, the more they push it out there. So please do, should you read and love A Tree with My Name on it, please do review it on Amazon. So we
Well,
got
thank
it
you very
covered.
much. Thank you for that. And you can also put a review on Goodreads too. I'm
Oh,
telling people to do that right
good.
now as
Yes.
well.
Thank you.
And try to remember the subtitle just because sometimes you start with a tree with my name and other tree things
Oh,
pop
gotcha, gotcha.
up.
Finding my way home. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Finding a way home. But anyway,
Thank you. Thank you.
uh,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
thank you so much, Sheena. It's
This
been
was a lot of
really
fun. And those of you tuned in, I hope you enjoyed the talking with Victress, and I hope you will get to read her book. I think you would enjoy it. So, see you next time.